Is it a fast ship?
Are you kidding? It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
Isn't a parsec a unit of distance, not time?
You've seen that before, you've heard the jokes, it's become such a joke and talked about to the point that now it's a meme. Why did Han Solo use the term parsecs to boast about how fast his ship is when parsecs is a measurement of distance and not time? On this episode of Straight Razor in the Theater, we're going to talk about how Solo fixes all of that. Coming up. Welcome to Straight Razor in the Theater, where we sit down and review movies that we saw, well, in the theater. Fanboy here, and today I'm going to talk about Solo. I just saw Solo yesterday with my father and my grandfather. It's a tradition we have. Every time a Star Wars movie comes out, we go see it together. It used to come few and far between. We started it in '96 when they re-released the original trilogy in theaters. It's actually the earliest memory I have of visiting the theater. When the prequels came out, we saw those in theaters, and when they re-released Phantom Menace in 3D, we saw that. Well, now, since Disney bought Lucasfilms, and since The Force Awakens, there's been a slew of Star Wars movies that come out on a yearly basis. That tradition basically carries on year after year after year. And I'm not on this whole bandwagon where if Disney owns it, then it's officially dead because, well, first off, Disney ran my childhood. And Disney continues to run my adulthood with their stakes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Star Wars franchise. Needless to say, I still don't think the Star Wars movies have decreased in value, not so much anymore than George Lucas was already doing. So the fact that they run the series now doesn't bother me in the slightest. I honestly think the quality of the movies have actually gone up. As far as the side stories, that's most certainly the case. I have absolutely loved Rogue One, and as you'll come to find out in this review, I loved Solo as well. And before we go any further into the review, I do have to say that there is massive spoilers for Solo. So if you don't want Solo to be spoiled for you, click off the video, go see the movie, come right back. So to answer the question of the parsecs, well, actually that's the main premise of the movie. See, in the movie, Solo teams up with Woody Harrelson to help steal this hyperfuel for this gangster played by Vision, Paul Bettany. And in the process of doing so, they have to come up with this huge, massive heist to basically rob the mining civilization Kessel and steal their hyperfuel that's unrefined, and they only have a certain amount of time to basically bring it to a place for them to refine it before it explodes. So they're kind of on a time crunch, and the distance in which Kessel is from this refinery plant is 20 parsecs. That's right, parsecs. They actually use it as a measurement of distance. So obviously they know exactly where they're going with this. Well, in order for them to make it there on time, you know, before this shit explodes, instead of going, you know, just a regular straight through the actual route, they end up going through this maelstrom, which basically it's foggy, there's low visibility, there's dangerous fucking monsters in there. One, you know, basically giant octopus thing trying to crush the fucking Millennium Falcon as they try to escape. Black hole made of magma that basically, you know, draws them in. There's just a whole lot going in there. So yeah, it does a really good job at clearing up the whole Kessel Run conspiracy. Basically because ever since the episode Family Guy Blue Harvest came up with that whole, yeah, you know, well, parsecs is a measurement of distance and, you know, time. There's always been that saying that they've kind of misconstrued the details and, you know, it doesn't quite make sense the way they say it. But whether or not that was George Lucas's initial intention is beside the point. The fact is, they went back and they fixed it. When you watch the movie, it really does make sense. Another thing that I absolutely loved about the movie was it kind of played with the expectations, kind of the same way where in the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer they showed a lot of Tony Stark. So we were meant to believe that Tony Stark was going to become one of the main focal points for the entirety of Homecoming. When that wasn't the case, he probably had a total of 20 minutes of screen time in the whole thing. They did it a completely different way with the Solo trailer in Lando. See, they only showed a couple scenes here and there with Lando, leading us to believe he was only going to have maybe like a bit part. But he ends up actually joining Han Solo and Chewie on this adventure, and basically, obviously, to kind of like, for his own benefit, to make money off of it, because at this point he is the owner of the Falcon. This is how him and Han meet, which is actually kind of fun to watch. This whole movie is fun to watch from beginning to end, mainly because it's not like your typical run-of-the-mill Star Wars movie. I mean, Rogue One kind of departed from the normal Star Wars-y kind of things, but it still had that feeling of Star Wars. In this movie, at this point in time, we are after the fall of the Republic, but it was before the time of the Rebels. We actually get to see the birth of early Rebels in this group called Infant's Nest, which it kind of starts off as this really weird kind of space pirates, and then leads into, no, they're actually trying to protect, and they're stealing for the betterment of getting the goods to fight against the Empire. And we get another look at the Empire, whereas Han joins the Empire basically just as a way to earn a living, save money. He wants to buy a ship, so him and his love interest, Kira, played by Emilia Clarke, fantastically, I might add. Basically, they want to get a ship and they're running away together. And that's basically his whole drive, his whole reason for doing anything. His motivation in this movie is he wants to get out with her, and he wants to live happily ever after with her, because their entire life they've been on the run, they've had to work for this slug lady who doesn't give a shit about them, just cares about, making money off of them. This movie departs almost completely away from the normal Star Wars kind of feel, because there are no Jedis in it, there's no talk of the Force, there's no talk of Rebels, the Empire is only mentioned slightly. We get a whole look at the crime syndicates and the underworld of this universe, which I have to say is fantastic. It gives us a fresh look at something that we have kind of seen, but it's only been glanced over. We had at one point thought how funny it would be if they had made a film about Jabba the Hutt that was kind of in the style of Goodfellas, and how funny it would be if Disney would go ahead with that. And honestly, it's kind of what we got with this, is a heist, comedic-driven film starring Han Solo. And I will say that it really does star Han Solo. The kid they have playing Han Solo, I could hardly tell the difference. Obviously, I could tell the difference. They're completely different actors. It's his personality. He has the personality to carry the character. And honestly, if they were to make a sequel to this particular Star Wars film, I wouldn't mind that. I think that would be a really cool idea, because Donald Glover as Lando, he knocked that out of the park. This new guy is Chewie. I'm not quite sure how they make the Chewie noises, but if Peter Mayhew did all of that, they had to have brought him back, or if they did, this guy was just really good at emulating those voices, because I could hardly tell. I love Peter Mayhew, and I respect, the work he put into the character, but if this new guy is just as good as him, I don't see how that would be a problem, considering if this is a character they want to continue running for many, many movies, and they keep doing them year after year after year. Things are bound to start changing, and things are going to change now, and considering the fact that the possibility that Luke is officially gone, Han is most certainly gone, and Carrie Fisher is no longer alive to carry on the legacy of Leia, so even her future is kind of a mystery at the moment. Another thing I liked was the villain. Like I said, Paul Bettany played a villain. He played the gangster in the film. Basically was like the head honcho and the pimp that ran Kira's life after he saved her from the planet that her and Han grew up on. Another villain, basically a surprise villain who kind of came out of left field, was Woody Harrelson's character. He's a character that's driven out of greed. If you see the original Star Wars and how the original trilogy plays out, and eventually we see that Han is a warm-hearted individual, we kind of see how he toughens up. And honestly, it all starts with Woody Harrelson. Because when the movie starts out, Han is, like I said, his main motivation is getting a ship, saving his girl, and getting the fuck wherever they're gonna be safe. And he meets Woody Harrelson, who runs this crew of thieves, and he basically joins in with them with that mindset still in mind. However, everything plays out, they do the Kessel Run, they succeed. They come up with the idea that they're gonna help Infant's Nest and basically help grow this rebellion. They're gonna get out of there, get their ship, get the fuck out of there. But they get turned on by Woody Harrelson, and in a complete turnaround, they kill the fucking gangster. Woody Harrelson makes off with Chewbacca, basically has Chewbacca hostage. They meet back up. Basically, Han Solo just straight murders the dude with his blaster. And the blaster that eventually will become his main weapon and what he became famous for using. It shows even more when after saving Kira, she basically kind of turns on him and just leaves him. And that's when he kind of realizes at that point, he can't trust anyone. He has nobody but Chewie. And it's kind of a nice way to leave off to where we will eventually see him in A New Hope. And honestly, I would not mind if they were to continue this story. I would like to see where, you know, this actor could take this character. Maybe we could see Lando a couple more times. And also, I absolutely love that ending where we finally get to see how Han got the Millennium Falcon. That was nice. That being said, I like the way that these films are going. I'm definitely enjoying the side films a lot more than I'm enjoying the actual movies. Like, I didn't mind The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. I didn't have nearly as many problems with The Last Jedi as everyone else on the internet seems to have. However, I will say that Rogue One and Han Solo, as far as the Star Wars movies that have come out in the past 4 years, those are the two that really stand out to me. And those are the ones I'm always going to be the most excited for. I'm really excited to see what James Mangold has coming up with the Boba Fett movie as well. Well, I think that's all the time we have for Straight Razor in the Theater. I'm Fanboy signing off. Avengers Assemble. May the Force be with you. And it's time to kick ass and chew bubblegum. Take it easy, guys.